welcome everybody. We are here, another episode of Cryptrix I've Been Thinking. And I hope everybody is having a great weekend. Might be a great week, actually, by the time I get this video posted up. But I just hope everybody is doing well and taking care of each other and doing some learning. And that's what I love to do on this channel, is bring on guests where we can have a great discussion and talk about important topics and learn some things. And you guys know that I love bringing on guests that, like I said, bring up these topics, and I love discussing them. So I'm just, I'm not going to babble too much. I tend to do that a lot, guys, at the beginning, so I don't want to do that. I'd rather get talking to my guest. And I have a great guest lined up for us this evening, and somebody I've been wanting to talk to, been checking out some interviews with them and some of the stuff that they are doing, and it's amazing stuff. So I knew I had to get him on the show for you guys and to have a great discussion. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring my guest in here. Hold on. There we go. And there's my guest. This is Melisa Arnautovic. As I said, Melissa, I've been practicing that last name. That's a tough one.
The hard work paid off. Good to be with you, Rick.
Oh, thank you for being here. And I'm, as I said, we were talking right before this, and I mean, we were talking about so many great topics. And in these topics, what I want, like for this show, I want to cover a few topics that I think are really important. And I would like to talk about core values and moral respect, and definitely touch on the deception in authority. That's something that I'm very big on talking about, because I think people are very, very deceived about with authority. And they have, I mean, it's just, when I look at it, it's crazy how much people put behind it. So I would love to talk to you about these topics and whatever else we come across. I mean, I don't think we'll have any trouble hitting any topics. But yeah, so can you just start, let everybody know a little bit about yourself, like your past and how you got to where you are now, just to get everybody familiar?
Sure. Okay, let me try and do a really short version. So I was
Oh,
born
take
in
your time.
Bosnia.
Take your time.
I was born in Bosnia, and when I was 3 years old, there was something called the Balkan War, which broke out in that region in former Yugoslavia. My parents then moved to the UK, where I grew up in the UK. And then I moved to Austria 10 years ago. So I'm living in Austria since 10 years. My background is predominantly in the corporate world in various different functions. I was in the corporate world for more than 15 years. I started really early
Right.
into that system. I was arguably in one of the biggest indoctrination school systems, being the UK, because I was just thinking about this the other day, that they only teach you, I remember history and everything being purely about British history.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to even remember wondering as a kid, like, why don't we learn about the history of any other country? Like, why are we only learning about British history? And it was always just about wars and how proud they were that they have all these, riches and jewels and whatever. And I was like, but didn't they get stolen and like robbed from other people? So it's really just, I was always, let's call it a curious thinker. I was always someone who opposed authority. It never felt right to me, meaning that I always wanted to do what I want to do. Like, no one's going to tell me what to do. Even my grandma said, she goes, Melissa always said, I want what I want. Like, you can't make me do what I want to do, don't want to do.
Right.
But I also had, from my parents coming from that background, a very, very harsh sort of, war-driven background. And I mean, really war, like real war. And so they went through a lot of hardships there. And they had this mentality of a lot of self-discipline and drive and work ethic. So that definitely stayed within me. But in 2012 is when I decided to leave the UK with my partner at that time, because I was like, this can't be life. That was the beginning of my sort of bigger awakenings. I was like, this can't be all of life. I already had like a decent full-time corporate job, whatever, living in my own place with my partner and all that. I was like, okay, but this is kind of like horrible. Like, you just go to work all day, you come home extremely exhausted, you eat something, you watch some TV, you go to sleep, and then you start all over again the next day. And I remember always being like, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. And then the weekend was like, you're just sitting in four walls in a huge city, right? Because there's no, like London, there's basically no nature, no nothing. It's just traffic and bad weather. And I was like, this just can't be life. So for over a year, I was like contemplating, like, no, just got to do something different. So that was like one of my first kind of downloads or insights from the universe, because it just didn't make any sense. No one around me was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this is a huge risk. Why do you want to go and move to a country that you've literally never even visited? We hadn't even visited Austria. It was like,
Wow.
we're just going to choose. We took out a map and we're like, okay, where are we going to go? Like, where is there like more nature and stuff? Where do we think potentially is going to be some more, joy and quality of life? And well, now, obviously, 10 years later, looking back, I know why I had to choose Austria, because I really have had immense experiences here. But that was the beginning for me. And then it just continued sort of the peeling of the onion throughout the corporate life, because I got to really experience sort of behind the curtain, how these people are, being in boardrooms, being in rooms with sort of people that, supposedly are the ones that a lot of people in the world look up to,
Yep.
as their kind of pinnacle of what success in life is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was in rooms with these people. I'd go to business trips with these people. I've traveled to so many countries. And I was like, these people are really horrible. As in, like, their character is horrible. They lie, they're manipulative, they're only in it for them, in things for themselves. They're not trustworthy in any way. So I was like, why would anyone look up to this? So on top of that, that's being a good person, so to speak, in the system. I couldn't be converted to their satanic mindset, if you will.
Right. Yep.
So I really couldn't. So that's why I suffered from it, meaning that I was always doing the best that I could. I was always like an overachiever, but I was being like used for that, because I wasn't playing their game. Like, I just wanted to do a great job,
Yep.
So they would utilize that against you. So over time, I'd got burnt out and all that stuff. And then I was like, I just don't love what I'm doing. I don't want to give all of my energy into corporations that do nothing back for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love the product that's being sold here. I don't see how it helps people's lives. And even though I got to do what I love to and what I do now, which is training and workshops and teaching and educating, speaking, I was able to do that within the company, yes, like, and help people within the company. But it wasn't like, it's a small scale. You're still restricted. I still would have to cross-check every presentation with a manager, and they're going to tell you, I don't like that, you've got to change that. Or all the inside politics, right? Like the politics of when someone wants a promotion, they're backstabbing the other person. It was just so much of this ugliness behind it. And you'd realize, like, wow, everyone's just, it's this dog eat dog world. And I didn't like it. And I also wasn't made for it, because I was genuinely just trying to do a great job and help people. So actually, just before this whole thing happened, this plague thing, 2 years ago, in November 2019 is when I decided to leave the corporate world, full-time work, and start my own venture, as in nobody manages me, no one's my boss, I'm self-employed, if you will. And I think it was amazing that it happened just before all of this,
For sure.
all of this came down. Like, now when I look back, I was like, wow, that was really the universe, like, preparing me, like taking me out of that system already beforehand.
Right.
And again, I went on a whole other journey of learning there as well. Like, I had to learn all these new skills as well, like for the online world, because the majority of what I was doing was offline. I was doing offline workshops with people in real life, groups of 20, 30 people in a room, and, around the world. And then you have to go from that to everything's online. Yep. Right. So I was learning all those skills, building my own websites, learning how to do Zoom workshops and stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm doing Zoom workshops where you're just looking at a camera like this and there's 1,000 people on the other side.
Right.
And you're like, okay, this is a whole other world right now, And, but I was like, I went because it was linked to the right thing. I knew I was doing the right thing, because what I opened my own company for, if you will, whatever you want to call it, what I became self-employed for, was to teach expanding consciousness, to help people master their own minds, master their own emotions, and become the leader of their own lives. And so I do that through what I call human skills. So everything basically helping people learn how to actually live a fulfilling life and do purposeful work in their lives. You've got to remember, we spend 80% of our time at work. 80%.
That's crazy when you
and 85% of the world hates their jobs.
Yep.
Like, hates them. Now, just think about what comes from that. Like, I'm going to go on a tangent now already. Think about what comes away from that, which is that, you get physical disease because you're constantly, suppressing how you actually feel. You're constantly stressed out. It causes physical disease. People can't stand their managers because managers are micromanagers. They're bosses. They're mini slave masters, right? Yep. Which is when we'll get into the point about authority in the corporate world, or in general, in organizations. Okay. The fact that we even have an employee employer-employee dynamic. It's quite literally just a fancier name when we talk about word spells, right?
Yep.
It's a fancier name for master and slave. It's exactly the same dynamic.
Exactly.
Because even when I was working in corporate, if I wanted to still I was trying to launch my own business on the side, you can't, because they take all your energy, they take all your life force. You're working 24/7 for them. And on top of that, they monitor like who you are outside of work as well. It's really weird. Like they'll see how you are on social media, and every company does this.
Yes.
So they actually kind of own you. When you're an employee, you're signing your contract to say, like, you basically partially own me, especially because you pay me a wage and I have to pay half my wage into taxes and all that, right? So they literally have a right, in a way, to sort of monitor and tell you whether or not you can or can't do things on your own, like on your own Instagram, on your LinkedIn or whatever. And I remember even having colleagues that had an issue with that, as in like they would post something on Facebook and the next thing they know, a HR manager is calling them saying, why are you posting such controversial content on Facebook? He's like,
Yep.
dude, it's my private Facebook. Like, why are you? So, you know, this stuff happens in the
Yes.
corporate world, yet people, it's portrayed as this fancy thing because you get a nice suit and you get a company car and you get, you know, the office and your laptop, and it looks all lovely, but it's just a modern way of calling someone a slave. So I've totally gone off a tangent.
No, that is perfect. You say it so well, and that's what I try to tell people too. And you're so right when you say that people are giving away their energy, because I think that's one of the most important things that they're taking from people. They take a lot of different things, but I think our energy is one of the main things. And you're so right, because I think I know people that have jobs. They hate their jobs. They don't. They were like you. They're waiting for the weekend, and then the weekend's so quick, and they're just doing stuff around the house or whatever it is. Just to, they're not really taking time to themselves. They're just trying to get things done that they couldn't do because they're working so much. And so I totally agree that the work, the way they have, and I know it's by design. They want people in this state where they're not thinking. Like, they want you like a robot is what I call it. They want you to go do your job, and then you go home, you have a couple hours with your wife, your kid, your husband, whatever, and then it's like you said, right back to the same thing. And this is just what people do day after day after day. And what I admire about you is you broke free from that. And I've had talks with a lot of my friends that are in jobs that they don't like, and they always say to me, it's not like, how do you do that? How do you I know it's got to be so scary to do that. I mean, you're breaking away from something that's comfortable and familiar, and it's guaranteed. You got all the things that come with that, but you're miserable. So how do you suggest people get away from that system? That, to me, that seems it's such a big move to rely on yourself. And
it is. It's a huge move, and whether people, they're not going to like to hear it, but at the end of the day, yes, it is a huge risk going into the unknown. You cannot be guaranteed safety. You just can't. And it's more that mindset shift than anything else. If I had known what would have been possible for me after, everything I've managed to achieve having coming out of this system in terms of my own well-being, my own fulfillment, purpose, and still being able to take care of myself in terms of just ensuring I can live,
Yep.
If I'd have known it, then the decision would have been easy, right? Of course. Oh yeah, I know it's all going to work out fine, but you don't know that. And certainly not going into a global, pandemic and being the most difficult. So honestly, all odds were against me in so many ways. On top of that, I'm in a country that's not my native place. Like, I speak the local language here, which is German. It's not English. So I had to learn fully a second language, like fluently. That was another thing, which was like, again, it's a mindset. It has to come again down to how well do you know yourself? How much do you trust yourself? And how much confidence do you have in your ability to go for what's right? So when I was thinking about it, it wasn't like I just said, okay, tomorrow I'm just going to quit and forget all of this. It's a process. And yes, people need to have a plan, meaning you are going to have some savings, because I had to invest all my own money. I don't have shareholders or whatever. It's not that kind of thing. It's all my own investment. So You have to have some money saved up. Absolutely. Can you ensure that you have, let's say, enough to live for 6 months if you had no income? That's the first thing someone's got to think of. Like, how
Yep.
much months of money, let's say, have you got in the bank that you can sustain simply living, your cost of living, if you were to quit your full-time job? That's number one. Number two is your standard of living. You may need to change it.
Right.
That was a huge comfort I had to change too. I was by no means living luxuriously or anything like that, but I certainly never, I definitely had the luxury of never looking at what something costs when I wanted to buy it. I was never like thinking like, oh, can I afford that or whatever? Whereas that mindset does have to shift when you then want to leave the system and therefore like be smarter with your spending, for example. Just that alone, knowing how much is enough for you, can be such a freeing experience in terms of your costs.
Yep.
Because a lot of people have more costs. It's an illusion. They have more expenses than they actually need because they're in the system, because they need to have the car to go to work. They need to have all of the, extra clothing they need. They need to pay to order food for lunch, for dinner, because they have no time to cook, right?
Yep.
And it's just like all these things add on top. So actually you have extra expenses that you don't have when you're out of the system. That's another thing. And the other thing is you need to know what it is you're trying to achieve. I knew what my purpose was. That's one of the courses I have online, is discovering your purpose. That's what I first did. This is what I'm good at. This is what I want to do. And I'm going to do it no matter, like, I'm going to go full out. You have to want to go full out. You can't just kind of tiptoe. I was trying to build the company on the side, like on the weekends or whatever. But it's just not, as you said, the system is designed to take so much of your energy. You haven't got the time. Where is your time? Where's your energy to start to try and cultivate a side hustle, as they call it,
Yep.
please? Like, no, there's no time for that. So it has to be a full-time effort. And also when you then treat it as a full-time, and when it has to be like your full-time, you will also, you'll switch on differently. You'll take it more seriously as well.
For sure.
But I think for the biggest point though, beyond all of that, is that when is enough for people? And for me, it was I was getting to the point where I was being screwed over so much by people that I worked with, that the universe brought to me a situation. So even though I was thinking about it and planning about it for like a year or so, it brought me the situation. The universe will bring you, basically, first it will come in small things. So again, you might experience every few weeks something small, like something goes wrong with a project, or your colleagues talking about you behind your back, or you have a bad manager that is an alcoholic or something. I've heard that before. So it's just like all these things will come up, but you kind of tolerate them, right?
Yep.
And then it's like until something really big comes because you weren't paying attention. So for me, it was like, yeah, they were all coming, but it was like nothing was big enough for me to be like, okay, because I would always give the benefit of the doubt, right? Oh no, well, it's just, maybe it's me. Maybe I need to adjust the way I'm seeing it. Maybe, and that's, you've got to be careful, because again, in the system, that's what they're going to do. They put everything on you. You, the worker, they're like, oh, it's your fault. You need to adapt. You need to be more resilient. Everyone's going to watch out for this word that they're using right now in the word spells, is resiliency, adaptability. Like, this is like, that's life now, guys. You just got to adapt to everything. Well, change is the only constant. True. But just because things are changing does not mean that we have to adapt to the change. What is the change? Do we want it? Remember, we can create the future, right? We can create the change. So when you hear people saying things like, you have to just adapt to the change because it's going to change anyway, I disagree with that. What is the change? So like when they talk about, transhumanism, for example, and man merging with machine, oh, well, that's just coming anyway. You just got to adapt to the change. Don't be a, Flintstoner or all these weird words. It's like, no, how about we consider the actual implications of literally merging human beings' DNA, trying to play God into a machine? Like, that's not you being a Flintstoner or an old ager by questioning that form of so-called progress, right? But anyway, I'm digressing. So for me, it had to come to like a really huge sort of thing where I was screwed over quite a lot. And I just had the moment in a meeting where I was actually being offered some kind of promotion, which was a total crap. I was like, let me think about it over the weekend. I
Right.
already knew what I was going to say. It just, I can't explain to you. It just washed over me, this piece that was like, Mel, you just got to do this now. And what will be, will be. It's the right thing. Enough is enough. Like, when are you going to actually respect yourself enough to say no here? Like,
Right.
you'll figure it out, you know? And that's where people need to come to, is that self-worth. Because again, that's the biggest wound everyone has,
Yep.
actually, is they don't
100%.
think they're worthy. Everyone has this wound.
Yep.
And it's just, when do you discover it and all that? And for me, that was that. I was like, my God, I've been blind this whole time, assuming it's just, I've got to adapt, I've got to change, I've got to change my perspective. In the meantime, I'm constantly being, screwed over. So I came in on the Monday and I was like, thank you very much, but no thank you. Like, I'm leaving. And it was the most liberating, refreshing, and peaceful feeling I ever had. Like, it was beautiful. Like, I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel like I made a mistake saying it. It just felt so right. And I'm sure there's a few people listening that would have experienced something similar,
Yep.
especially over the last 2 years. There's a lot of people that even lost their jobs, right? And if they were really honest, a lot of them were actually almost relieved because
I
they hated
agree.
their jobs, right?
Yep.
So the answer is, it's not easy. It is a big risk, but honestly, the risk is so worth it. And again, if I'd have even dreamed as to what my life would have turned out then to be as what it is now, yeah, see, I'm speechless, because it's
Right.
just, it's to say it was the right thing. Like, it
It
was
was.
literally the right thing. So
Exactly. Right. And that I like what you were saying. You're so correct what you say, and it's amazing to hear you say it, because it's what I think about, and I think about a lot of things, and I think people have to start. I call it shadow work, and it's
yeah,
where I sit with myself, and I'm very honest with myself, and I ask myself a lot of hard questions. And I do it every day. I take time just to be with myself, and I just call it getting to know myself. You call it shadow work, whatever you want. And I think
yeah,
when I started doing that is when I started to realize, as you were saying, your self worth, and what you're willing not to accept, and then start questioning these beliefs that you have. Like, why do you have them? It's like, that's a whole different topic. But I mean, the shadow work, it goes so deep into who you are. And I think that I know a lot of people don't do that work. Most of them run away from that type of work. The last thing they
yeah,
want to do is confront themselves,
yeah,
and they rather point fingers at everyone else in the world or their situation and blame other people, but not realize that it's coming from within. And
absolutely.
so, I mean, I'd like to get your thoughts on shadow work, because I know a lot of people that I talk to don't do it. They just don't. And I think that that's the foundation to getting out of all of this. We have to realize, because everybody's got a talent, right? I mean, I honestly
Yeah, they
believe that
do.
everybody's
They
got a
really
talent.
do.
Yes.
Yep.
So when you start doing that shadow work and getting honest with yourself, you start to realize what your talent is, and that
Yeah.
is what you can build off of to get out of this corporate world. Is to channel your energy into that, instead of giving all your energy to this company or boss that does not care about you. You know, you're so replaceable to them.
Exactly. Exactly. Imagine that. Imagine how much energy you then have. That's the thing. People can't envision it because they've never known anything else. If you
Right.
all you've ever known is, following the footsteps that society tells you to do, right? You can't imagine what it's like to have all that time and
Yep.
energy. Your time, the amount of time I got back is so priceless. You could not, there's no amount of money you could write me a check to say, just go back and do the corporate work. You will never see me in a cubicle in a desk office
For
ever again.
sure.
Like, it's such a different world, and the amount of time you get back. And in that time, you get to do, first of all, as you said, the shadow work, which is so critical. And here's the thing. So as you said, people want to distract themselves or blame other people, whatever. You can still do shadow work in a safe space,
Yep.
meaning alone with yourself in your own, home, in your own, or in your car, or wherever's a safe space for you. Maybe there's a mountain you can go to.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
Um, but that was extremely powerful for me. So as in what you said, like, when you have, a lot of people have to reach that sort of I forget you reach rock bottom, right? You have to reach rock bottom to a point that there is no other option other than to look at it, look at yourself, speak
Yep.
with yourself. And the most powerful gift I had in that sort of state is to have no one to go to. Now, let me be really clear, because people think a lot is like, you need the support from others and whatever. it can be a very sneaky escape and scapegoat.
Hmm.
But when you have no one to go to, meaning you literally have to fucking sit with yourself, there's no one to call, there's no one to cry to, there's no one to comfort you, it's just you. You've got to look at yourself, you've got to look at everything that you've decided in life up until this point. You have to be willing to be honest with yourself. So we're not only lying to other people, we're lying to ourselves, right? So you've got to be honest to yourself. Okay, how have I gotten to this point?
Hmm.
How am I not believing in myself? How am I causing the very issues that I'm having? For example, for me, it was I would always have scenarios, especially work scenarios, where I was always over controlled. I would have people in my life that would always try to over control me, like strangle me from control, right? And I realized it was because from shadow work, because I was attracting people like that, because
Exactly.
I had that in me, that I was expecting that kind of aspect and personality, because I expected that from others in a way that that's what I knew. It was a pattern from like childhood and so on. So when I realized that and broke that pattern and realized, oh no, actually people won't control me when I actually become fully in control of myself and set boundaries.
Exactly.
Okay. These boundaries are important because not only between others, but for yourself. It's knowing for yourself, like, what do you allow? What don't you allow? Almost nobody can tell you what their boundaries are today.
Hmm.
It's all, this is what they call like enmeshment. It's like totally like there's no boundary there at all. It's just, there's so many people who are like people pleasers, for example, right? They never know when to say no. They feel immense guilt. That's also not by accident, because again, we're conditioned to feel like bad
Yep.
people for saying no, you know? So, but it's like, when are you going to say yes to yourself? So yeah, the shadow work still, I think, for not only for me, but for lots of people I know and I've worked with, the best form of it is literally just sitting by yourself with yourself, looking in the mirror,
Yep.
sitting in silence. And if you have to physically transmute, you use pen and paper, write down what you're feeling,
That's what
write
I
down
do.
something that was actually, yeah, you can also write, for example, letters to people that have hurt you and things like that. That was always something very powerful. Write letters to the people that have hurt you, saying the things you wanted to say, or also forgiving them and then burning it, because fire is transmutational energy. It's
Yep.
very powerful. Like, it might sound like nothing when I tell you, but when you literally do this, when you take pen to paper, you take how you feel in your thoughts and you write it down, you put that out, it's like speaking it into existence, and then burning it by letting it go. You're letting it go. It's released from your life.
It's
It's a very
powerful.
profound feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very,
Uh,
very, very powerful. And that's what I do. To be honest, that's really crazy that you brought that up. I've always been a writer. That I write, I journal, I write all my thoughts down, and I look over my journals from years ago to see where I was and where I'm going. I love doing that work. And I got to I didn't like doing shadow work at the beginning because it was hard, and you have to be honest, but you get to like it because you really start to
exactly.
discover yourself.
Yeah.
And the things that got me, that really were shocking to me doing this work, was how much stuff that I was programmed to believe. Like, they weren't things that I
Yeah.
believed. There was just stuff that I was taught in school, and that's
Yeah.
that's a topic I love to get into you too, because I've had guests on recently where we were talking about the schooling system and
Mhm.
how they're getting children so young now. And like, I mean, it used to be kindergarten. At least where I live, it was kindergarten, and then you had public school, and then you had
I
high
think now it's
school.
like 3 years old
Yeah,
or
now
something.
well, now you got pre-kindergarten. So now you got pre,
Wow.
and then you got daycare before that. So you're giving your children over so young to
Yeah.
strangers,
Yeah.
and they keep you busy at work with your job,
Yeah.
so you're not spending time with them. You may have a couple hours in the maybe an hour in the morning, and maybe an hour or
Yeah.
two at night. And then they're always in someone else's care. So this is a topic I'm really passionate about talking about, because I do have friends that have children, and I see what's going on. I try to talk to them, but that's a touchy subject. I found that out the hard way. And so I got to be delicate when I talk to them. But yeah, it's just when you do the shadow work, you start to realize all of these beliefs that you have, they're not yours. These are things that are just
Exactly.
constantly put in your head through all these different ways, through social media, through all of the things, and especially schools. So I'm big on, if I did have children, I would definitely homeschool. So what are your thoughts on the school system? I already know what you're going to say about the school system, but I want to get your thoughts on. Uh,
I don't know if you know this, because now, like, as an adult, again, like you said, looking back, back then it was just normal. It was what I was growing up with. But
Right.
now when I look back, I'm horrified as
Yep.
to some of the things that we endured through school. So for example, so first of all, I'm a non-parent, but like you,
Right.
I'm extremely passionate about conscious parenting. I have a lot of friends and just
Me
people
too.
around me with children. In my opinion, everyone that is an adult has a responsibility to set an example for children around them, regardless of whether they're your children or not. You know,
100%.
they are simply the children of the earth. That's kind of how I look at it. So I don't think it's just the responsibility of whoever gave birth to the children. It's just every adult in the vicinity. So I don't know if you knew this, but in the UK, we have a school uniform, okay? And
Mhm.
it starts very early, from about 5 years old.
Wow.
And I kid you not, this uniform is a full-on. Have you ever seen Harry Potter?
Yes. Yes.
So that's a real school uniform. You wear a tie, you wear a blazer, you wear like a full-on, it's like a suit.
Right.
So they're already conditioning you from as young as like your earliest memories for your corporate world, right? It's like, oh, you got to wear this suit, you got to wear a tie. Like, even as girls, like we were wearing suits and ties, and it was like the most stupidest things that they pay attention to. Like, for example, it was a deep navy blue was the color of our uniform, and if you came in wearing black, pants, trousers, right, they'd send you home to change. And now when you think about it, it's like, if education is so important, like, why are you caring about whether or not someone's, what they're wearing is navy blue or black? I mean, really, is that what's important to teach?
Right.
To teach our children, and the fact that it's literally scheduled as a full day, like 8 hour day. So
Same
it was
here.
like from 8 to 3 or 8 to 4, bombarded with information because you're just going from subject to subject. You don't remember anything because there's no emotion there. So the school system is very left-brained, and when we talk about left brain, right brain, it is very theoretical, right? You don't literally have, yes, you do have two brain hemispheres, but they're very connected,
Right.
But it's just more like left brain being, it's very much just about the analytical process. Everything's about process, step by step, analytical, and right, wrong, black, white kind of thing. And think about it, as children, that's when your brain, so from the age of 0 to 7, that's when your brain is like a sponge.
Yep.
Okay, your brain is still developing. We have very complex brains, and our outer, like the sort of newest part of the brain, if you will, the part that only humans have, especially the prefrontal cortex, comes into being much later, like much, much later. But from 0 to 7, a child literally has no capacity for critical thinking whatsoever. So just imagine that for a second. That's why, for example, psychologists always focus on the first 7 years of your life, because they're so shaping of your how you view the world. And also, you have no moral compass yet. Exactly. Because you have no critical thinking, meaning who are you learning morality from? The people, your environment. You're learning it from your immediate environment, your parents, your teachers, your peers, and so on. So that's why, for example, religion, and this is a huge topic, you're right, this is something we've over ages, but religion, that like the priest would say, give me the boy until he's 7 and I'll show you the man. Yep. Because again, they know these things. They've had the most skilled neuroscientists and so on that work on all these indoctrination systems. So it's built to strip away all creativity and all imagination from children. You're never using any of your creativity, imagination. Play is very quickly disintegrated, whereas actually play, the state of play, simply exploration, adventure, running around, joy, that is actually where children learn the most, and adults too, to be honest.
It's true.
But that is where children learn the most. So they will still learn all the things like how to read, how to write, how to calculate something, but with all this other great stuff. But what the school system does is it forgets all the parts that actually makes you human and that actually is connected to your soul, and focuses purely on the mechanical machine part, because they're shaping you to be a cog in a machine. That's what the corporate world is. And 100%. The industrial age was created 200 years ago, about 250 years ago. The industrial age was created, and all that was transferring slaves from the plantations. Now we're going to put you into a nice building, and we're going to call you employee.
Yep.
Okay, and we're going to give you a so-called paycheck, but now you're no longer a slave. Wrong. We're all, if you are given a paycheck by an employer, you're still a slave. That's just the reality. That's not me projecting a opinion. That is literal reality. Also, when it comes to the financial system, don't even get me started on that,
I know.
because
Yeah.
money in itself is an illusion. And also, anybody who has ever studied and done anything high up in financial institutions, I've known a few of these people who literally cracked at the end because they realized how messed up that system was.
Yep.
And then they left it and started to teach people the reality. For example, inflation, which we're all experiencing insanely right now, right? Inflation is legalized counterfeiting. What is counterfeiting? It's when you make something up, right? Like that's not real. So I can counterfeit a check and give it to you, and that's a fraud. I can go to jail for that. But the government can't go to jail for counterfeiting inflation, because that's what it is. It's counterfeit. It's counterfeit money. It's making up money that doesn't exist, or percentages of money. And this is, again, not my opinion. This is coming from experts in the financial field. And it's legalized inflation. So this comes to moral relativism,
Yep.
which is that, okay, so for them, there's one rule, but for everyone else, it's another rule. So this is what you're taught, to bring it back to the school system. Everything you're taught growing up is wrong. I call it the history that never was. We don't know, I'll probably write a book on this someday, because none of us really know what history is. It's been so messed up.
Exactly.
Like there's so many different versions. Every country has their own version. The country that wins the war writes the history, right? So they're teaching you the history that they want you to know to shape you into the being they want you to be tomorrow, because the best form of slave is an obedient slave. And why is it the indoctrination system, or the school system, one of the most key things we can be talking about right now? As you said, if I had children, I would 100% be homeschooling them. I don't think that the school system does anything for people's kids. And if people are really honest with themselves, you have to admit this to anybody else, just sit with yourself, and really ask yourself, if you had the choice, like in the sense of, would you rather that your child was at this indoctrination system for 9 hours a day, that you never get to see them and they're being shaped into a human that you can't even recognize? Or would you rather that they're homeschooled, which can be misleading in the sound, because people immediately think, oh, does that mean I have to work 8 hours?
I was going to say that.
Child?
Yep.
Which, I mean, what are your thoughts on that before I say, like, is that how you would perceive
that's what, when I talk to people that have children about homeschooling, that's immediately what they go to. They're like, the first thing they say is, how am I going to teach my kid? I'm not a teacher, is usually what they say. And then they say, I don't know how to teach 8 hours a day. I'm not, like, that's what they get into. And that's why I love that you brought that up, because that's the first thing they tell me is that, well, how am I supposed to create a classroom in my house and teach them for 8 hours a day? And I'm like, that's not what homeschooling truly is. Like, I mean, they're trying to copy the school system. And I'm like, you're trying to get away from the school system, not just bring it to your house.
Exactly. And that shows you as well, as adults, how that's proof that their imagination and creativity is stripped away.
Yep.
Because that shows you, literally, if someone says, oh, that means I have to just copy and paste what the school system does, it shows you the creativity is gone. So the result we have in adults today is a result of the school system, which we know clearly does not work. It just shapes people to be cogs in a machine, as I said, from the Industrial Revolution, which we're only seeing more and more of now, which is the sense that basically, and again, this is openly public, this is not my opinion, you can look this up this is taught in business schools, this is the main purpose of any single company that exists is to make profit. That's it.
Yep.
They just exist to make profit, guys. They don't care about you. They don't care about how happy you are at work. All of that is just fluffy stuff on top to pretend and to drag you in, to bring you in. Okay. They'll say, oh yeah, we have a gym, or we give you cookies for lunch or whatever. But like the main point is, you're still going to be unhappy. Why is still 85% of the world literally hates their jobs? That's a huge figure. That means the system is not built for flourishing human strengths. And you pointed out something earlier, which is really important, is that I do genuinely believe, and I have seen with working with so many people, that people have inherent talents, they have inherent strengths. And when you identify them, which you do through your creativity and imagination, not through doing a checklist of what someone else
Yep.
told you what to do, when you discover that and you start to continue learning but develop your strengths, not only do you get like 1,000 times better or whatever it is your strengths are, but because you're good at it, you love it, you enjoy it. You're not just doing it because someone's telling you to do it, and that brings a whole other energy. And so
It
I
gives you
think,
it gives
yeah,
you energy. I find, like, because I do what I
yes,
love, it gives you energy, and you're not drained. I find that people that when they do a job they
yeah,
hate, they come home and they're just drained. Like they just want to crash, watch
100%.
TV. But when you're doing something that you love, like I love doing interviews. To me, this energizes me. I don't. I feel so energized doing an interview, and after an
Yeah, me
interview,
too.
I don't feel drained. It's not.
No,
It's totally opposite of what I see other people doing.
that's so true. And I get the same comments as well, like after doing a workshop and stuff, whether it's in person or online, always the first thing I get is, your energy is amazing, your energy is crazy. Like, and I'm like, this is just because it's giving me energy. You said, because I
Yep.
love to do this. People might notice I get animated even in an interview
Yep.
because I love this stuff. I love to talk about this stuff because I just naturally teach. That's my skill. So it is possible. Not only is it possible, it's where we need to go with the world, because obviously we're currently in a state where, the numbers are horrible. I was reading something today just in the US alone that like 60% of children under 17 are severely depressed.
Yep.
We don't want to be, again, that's not showing you that it's just a result of the last couple of years. It's a result of the human condition itself.
Exactly.
So the system itself cannot be fixed. This is what I keep on focusing for people. It's not about fixing the system from within. Believe me, I tried. You can't. They will stop you in any given moment because the system is designed to work the way it does, to benefit a few while the majority get screwed over. We need to not have this. The system needs to come away completely. In order for that to happen, though, we need to remove the belief of authority.
100%.
So that's the huge lifelong work that's ultimately the underpinning of every issue, whether it be politics, whether it be people's own parents, whether it be the work that they do, their bosses, whoever. People always feel like they answer to someone else, and they're going to be either rewarded or punished for their behavior. That's that. If you think about what that means to believe in authority, we're not just talking about government being the ultimate one,
Right.
but all forms of authority. Oh no, if I don't send that email, someone's going to punish me. That's you believing someone has authority over you and what's going to happen in your life, that you are not responsible for what happens in your life. And how many people have this, right? They get anxiety on for example, Sunday night. They get that loathing, that anxiety.
Yep.
Oh no, Monday morning's coming up. You've got that because you believe so much that somebody else or a group of people has the authority over your life, that if you do something that is not in alignment with what somebody else wants, meaning you're not being true to yourself, you're not honoring yourself, that you will shape your whole life around that. Meaning like that's you believe that so much that you will like die for it, basically. But it's a complete illusion. But it's a strong one because, again, you literally, from the moment you've been born, whether it be your parents, the school system, and then eventually your work, and also, of course, the government, all of these forms of authority are there to make you believe that, well, that's right, you're not a sovereign being. You are owned by somebody else. You do not own yourself.
Yep.
So tell me, Rick, what does it actually mean to be sovereign?
To be sovereign? To why? How am I getting the questions now? What is going on here? You just whipped it out on me. What does it mean to be sovereign?
I'm just curious of how, like, what's the first thing you think of when you think of the word to be a sovereign being?
To be free. To that's I can't put it in a sentence. Sovereign
To be
being.
free. And what is free in which? What does freedom look like? Take me through a normal day of a free person.
This okay. Now you got me on the spot here. I got to think about this one. The normal day of a free person. Um, well, see, it's complicated because I just think that you're not answering to people and you're not giving away
Mm,
who you are to another person or to another group of people. That you are doing, you're living, you're not harming anyone. You're doing what you want to do, and it's what you want to do. You're not, and you're doing it because you want to do it, which is very important. And you're not being controlled. You don't have, I guess, a boot on your neck from authority figures and stuff. So for me, freedom is
mm.
that you're living your purpose, and you're not, your non-aggression principle. You're not living with that. Like, you're living with that. You're not harming anyone else, and you're living your freedom and doing what you love, and just that's what it is. I mean,
No, that you've said it perfectly. I think you've literally painted the perfect picture. That's exactly what it is. And yet that image in itself is that the part that's the hard work, the work that we all need to do, that's why it's called the great work, is just that belief that that's actually a possibility. That's where most people are stuck. They'll hear what you just said and say, well, that's not the way the world is. It'll
I've
never
heard
be
that.
like that. You know, it'll never be like that. That's just dreaming, whatever. And when you hear, so you say you've heard that. When you hear people speak like that, it's because they've genuinely lost that spark for life. I know I come across these people a lot too in my workshops, especially when I do ones about like life purpose and stuff. When I see that spark come back, Rick, I tell you, it's so fucking liberating. It's like one of the most, because sometimes I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, because people do really get to a point where it's like they've lost their soul. It's like you're looking at somebody with like, there's nothing behind those eyes, you know?
I see that.
They've gone
Yep.
so far down the line, and it's honestly, it isn't anyone's fault. It's like we're literally born into this. It's a disgusting, sick system. Yes. I just, um, the point is though that it's not like it's inevitable. That's the part where people get stuck. That's why your imagination is your biggest gift, because if you cannot imagine a world beyond what we currently have in the human condition, then of course nothing will ever change. So that's why being able, like even what you're doing, like with these talks and everything, what you do in your work, everyone that you speak to, even when no one's watching, right, when you speak to your friends or people you know, like every single opportunity that we get to communicate with another, or even someone who's listening from who knows where, which country here, like everything is a learn, teach, learn experience, which means that you always have an opportunity. For so many people, it just takes one conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can think of some back in your life, some
Yep.
people, some things where they really change the way you think. Sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's a life experience, but that's why we can never give up on that spark. And again, people, they might say to your face, so they might say, Rick, like, oh, Rick, you just, that's a dream, you know, that's the
Yep.
way the world is, you can't change it. But secretly, they'll be like really inspired by you. Secretly, they'll be rooting for you. Secretly, they'll be like, fuck, I wish I could be like Rick, because he's got integrity. Like he really believes what he's saying. He's actually living in alignment with truth. And a lot of people, they won't admit it straight away, but it doesn't matter. It's not about them admitting it. It's about, did they get it or not? Like, are they getting influenced by it or not? And I had that quite a few times with people from the corporate world a couple of years later, like people that told me I was crazy and making a huge risk. They'll come to me later and ask me, like, how did you do it?
Yep.
Can you tell me how you did it? You know, and it's because people are afraid. They're afraid of ridicule. They're afraid of judgment. They're afraid to be abandoned. That's a huge one. People are so afraid of abandonment, which is why if we come back to shadow work, the only person abandoning you is yourself. So when you
100%.
stop abandoning yourself, you become superhuman, like literally. Because once you come home to yourself, it doesn't matter what happens in the external world, with who, with what situation, you've so much strength in your core because you know yourself.
Yep.
You love yourself, you believe in yourself, you have confidence in yourself, and you haven't abandoned yourself. And that takes work. Sometimes that takes, you're sad, you're crying, and you need to literally like hug yourself and say, it's okay, I'm here. Like this is a real practice. This is a practice they'll teach you in like psychiatry and so on. It's just like you literally self-soothe.
Yep.
Like, because I've done a lot of studying in neuroscience and psychology, and I've seen it work with people. Like literally, I'll have them sit there and soothe themselves. Talk to yourself. Be with yourself and talk to yourself like the parent you wish you had.
Yep.
In those moments where you feel most down and really like the whole world's against you, you come home to yourself. You don't abandon yourself, and you say, it's okay, we got this. If you feel like crying, it's okay, cry it out.
Yep.
And something beautiful happens in that moment. You just let yourself feel, and it releases, and like this weight comes off your shoulders. So just like you can do it with writing, you can also do it with self-soothing and self-talk. And another one, if like a third option for various people, is physical movement. Move your body, dance, sing, just go for a walk, anything. But when you move your body, it also gets the mind moving too. It's the same thing. So it's like if you're one of those like overthinkers or whatever, go for a walk, dance to your favorite song, like sing to it, and you'll see it will just work itself out. Like you don't have to react to everything always going on in your head. Like let it work itself out through physical movement, and it will literally, the thoughts will like move out of your body.
Right.
Um,
That's very,
that,
very,
yeah.
very true. I love to I love to sing when I'm doing stuff, and I'm not a good singer. I'll never say I would never let anyone hear me sing because I don't care though. My wife knows I love to sing. I'm always in the house singing and my favorite songs. I love music. It's a very big center for me.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why I love talking like music. I can't always be in this mode of research and talking. My head would explode, to be honest. So I need to decompress. I call it decompressing. So I listen to music, or I'm out in my garden or something like that, and that's where I kind of do my shadow work too. Is when I'm outside. I just kind of with myself and doing what I do, and it's so powerful when you start looking in and start loving yourself, Melissa. Because I do look at a lot of people, and I think the way they designed it now, and it sounds kind of funny when I say it out loud, but I see it. People don't even know themselves anymore. They don't love themselves. You see it. And I know it's by design. I know we're up against master psychologists. That's what I call them. Evil master psychologists that know the human condition so well. And
we know it because they made it.
They made it, right? And I love the way that you said that you can't change. Like a lot of people are like, well, how do we change the system? You can't change it from within or change the system, because for the system, it's working beautifully. They want the master class. There's no middle class. You got the upper class and you got us, which they look at as slaves. You're never going to change that because it's beautiful for them. So you have to find a way to get around the system, is what I call it. So that's a good question for you. How does somebody that's in the system live within the system but not be part of it?
Yeah, I think this is the thing. So I've seen both. So I've been in the system for a very long time and then out of it. And it's impossible for me to be who I am today, to know who I am, to live the way I do in the system. I wish I could tell you could do that, but you can't. And also, it's a huge step of responsibility, because it's about being real, about because what are you really saying when you say, how do you be in the system but not of the system? It's like, well, you're still choosing it, right? You're still choosing it.
That's true.
I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Like, it's a risk that people have to take, but it's so worth it. And you can't, because when you're in it, the thing is, everyone around you is it. So that it's even harder for you to not feel crazy or feel whatever, because everyone around you is literally an agent of the system. Yep. Everyone. Like, so you can't even if you have just like one friend in the office or something you talk to, even that person will turn on you the moment there's some kind of announcement and people got to get laid off or whatever. So it's just because it's infiltrated in all areas of your life. So it's just what comes with becoming honestly spiritually mature, by being who you are and then taking the consequences of that, meaning you may lose people, you may lose comforts, you may lose a so-called job in the system, but what you're gaining is it's so much more than that. Like, you're gaining your own dignity, you're gaining your own self-respect, you're gaining your own self-love. There's no amount of money, status, popularity, drugs, whatever in the system that they can like dangle in front of you that is worth this over here, that is worth you being integral, you knowing who you actually are, you living purposefully, you being able to actually sleep like a baby at night. because
Yeah.
you know that you're doing the right thing. Because again, that's, you're in the system. What do people? They can't sleep, so they take sleeping pills, or they drink alcohol, or they smoke some kind of. Uh, how many people are intoxicated with different drugs? Like, it's insane. It's just all a perpetuating cycle because you're not dealing with the problem. The problem being your very lifestyle is revolving around a lie. It's revolving around that which is incongruent with what you know to be true.
Yeah.
So that's why people have distractions, which is like, let me party, let me go on vacations, let me take some kind of drugs, let me drink alcohol. They're all distractions so that you can live with yourself because you're still in the system. So what
Very
I'm
true.
saying is that even though it seems like it might be some horrible thing for you to detach from the system, it's actually one of the most liberating, beautiful things you can ever do. And by the way, the people or the comforts you're losing along with it, honestly, good riddance. Like, they weren't people that were good for you anyway. They're
That's very
just there
true.
as part of that image. They're part of this mirage, and you can so see it when you're out of it. And then people in the system will look to you when you're out of it like, my God, look at that free, amazing. How are they doing that now? It's like they don't see the cocoon before the butterfly comes out part. And like you said in the beginning, the shadow work is hard, but then you grow to love it because it's
Yes.
just becomes part of knowing that's you maturing in life. So also being in the system is and trying to not be of it is you still saying and agreeing that you need somebody else to look after you. You need somebody else to tell you when to get up, to tell you where to go, to tell you how much money you're going to make, to tell you what is important to you. Because remember, what you give most of your time and energy to is what you class as important.
Yep.
That's why I said about core values. Like, most people have junk values, not core values, not real values. Junk values is, I want to make this much money. I want to make sure I can buy a Louis Vuitton bag. I want to go to Dubai on vacation. I want to, sleep with lots of people. I want to go to these clubs and buy champagne or whatever. That's junk values.
For
There's
sure.
nothing valuable about that. They're experiences you can have, whatever, but they're not values. Core values is things like knowing who you actually are, and then what are your values? So for me, for example, my values are integrity, freedom. How can we bring more unity? So that's why community is a huge thing for me. I'm always trying to get people to learn how to work with one another, because there's no humanity without each other. Lifelong learning is a huge value of mine. So I'm spending always a huge time learning. Nature is a huge value of mine. As you said, the time you spend decomposing. Every morning, without fail, I spend 2 to 3 hours outside in nature, walking around, enjoying myself. And I always experience something every day.
Something new.
And most people, when they're in the system and still hear me say, sorry, you go for a walk for like 2-3 hours, and like, what are you doing for 2-3 hours? They can't even comprehend just going for a walk with no agenda for 2-3 hours. They can't even envision that daily because they don't have that time. It's been stripped away from them, right? And because they're being told what to do. And so it's a whole other existence.
Right.
It's a better existence, honestly, but you have to get rid of the illusion of the comforts in the system. So sorry, the answer, you can't be in the system and not of the system. Your choice is either you're in it or you're not in it. You can't half-ass it. You got to be real. You got to take responsibility, become spiritually mature, and become an adult. Decide for yourself. Do I want to contribute to a system that I know is corrupt and that is harming and perpetuating the human condition of slavery? Because that's what you're doing. Or do I want to create something completely different and better for humanity and finally change the human condition into a beautiful paradise that this planet was supposed to be, where we're all free, we're all living our purpose, and we get to enjoy the 1,000 things we can enjoy without harming another human being? There are 1,000 things you can do without harming another. So, and how can we do that and create that? Like, those are two completely different focuses.
Oh, for sure.
That's why you see what I mean?
Right, for sure. And I talk to a lot of people, and they say they want. What's funny is they say they want to change, and they want the system to change. And I meet a lot of people like this. They want it to change, but they're not willing to make any sacrifice or do anything to help this change.
Exactly.
They don't and then I talk to other people like during, especially with here in Canada with the convoys and stuff like that. I talk to a lot of
Mm,
people, and they're at these, and they're like, nothing is changing. I hear that a lot, that nothing is changing. There people are protesting, nothing is changing, and I always tell them that because the government is based in, it's immoral, and it's um based in deception and coercion, which makes it wrong all around, that you're not going to vote. This isn't a voting problem. We're not going to vote our way out of the situation that we're in. It hasn't worked in the past. It's not going to work now, and it won't work in the future because it just by design it can't. And so I try to tell people that what we're talking about, that they have to start changing it. You have to start to change in yourself if you want to change it. We can't vote this away. It's
such
it's
an
a it's a
important
it's a
point.
consciousness problem. That's what I see. It's people aren't
Exactly.
conscious.
Exactly. That it is a consciousness problem. That's why all of my work is based around expanding consciousness. That's what that means. You cannot create something different from the same level of consciousness. So you gave a great example there. I could talk about 50 things of what you just said
Go
about
ahead.
the convoy and all that, right? Here's the mentality around that. Number one is that I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit here and cheer on those people. Hey, you're fighting for our freedoms. You're
Yep.
awesome. What the hell are you doing? So it's a cop out, right? Now, that's one thing. The people that support, let's say, protesting, whatever, or people that there's a whole other school of thought, which is people supporting like some kind of saint or angel that's going to come and save the world. And they're just sitting at home waiting. Any day now,
Any day.
any day, we're going to be saved. And in the meantime, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit here,
Yep.
right? And again, that's the system winning. As you said, the master psychologists, that they're laughing at you because they're like, yeah, perfect. You're not doing anything. That's the point. Okay. So secondly, you were talking about the whole point of protesting, which is about like changing votes, or think of the mentality. If I'm a free sovereign human being, would I be going to a building that claims they have authority over how I live my life, standing in front of it like a little angry child and going, hey, dad, hey, mom, I want my freedom back.
Yeah.
And I want it back 2 times while I'm yelling now, my neighbors could probably hear me. I'm like, full on, it's like, you see what I'm trying to portray, like how this looks from a different level of consciousness, okay? Is what you're literally, this is what they're seeing. They're laughing at you.
Yep.
Because they're seeing, they know nothing's going to change. They know they're not going to change nothing. And they know that you are focusing on the wrong things because you still believe that going and knocking on their door, looking up to them and saying, hey, mom, dad, can you please give me my freedom back now? Like whether you say it in an angry way or a nice way, you are still giving them your power. So that is a huge mentality shift that needs to happen, like in the sense of they do not own you. I'll give you a real life example of here where we had extreme measures in terms of mandating the thing, and there was a lot of threats and so on, like real threats. I had letters coming to me and stuff, like really threatening things. But me as a human of higher consciousness, I'm like, you can threaten me all you want. I know my inherent rights from the creator, not from you, right? Meaning, do what you want. Like if you want to come and knock on my door and try and take me, all right. Like that's what I'm saying is this is the process you have to go through in your head, because this is what happens to people. They'll get the letter or they'll see the new horrible news porn, the newest regulation, whatever, and they'll go, oh, and then they react to that, but nothing has happened yet. They're reacting to the narrative. They're reacting to an image. It's not real. And that's what these master psychologists feed off of. They only achieve anything they achieve because you believe it.
Right.
So back to the example I had, we were one of the only countries here in Europe that were literally going to enforce the thing. And if not, imprisonment or fines, right? Like really tyrannical measures.
Wow. Yeah.
And it fell through. They couldn't go ahead with it because, of course, it's immoral. It goes against natural law. And what people don't realize is what they were trying to do is to scare you enough to go ahead and do it anyway. That's it. They know that they can't impose it on you. This is what people need to realize. They actually cannot impose it on you unless they physically come and restrain you and do something, right? Which then you have the right to defend yourself, right? Other than that, it's just threats. It's narrative and images, and people respond to the narrative and images. And when you start to learn how to not respond to that initial reaction you got of fear, like, oh, no, what's going to happen? I'm going to lose my job or this and that. And then you react. And I actually had this with a few people like that were worried. For example, like I had people in my life that were at certain jobs or whatever. And immediately the first time they would hear one of these news, they would be really distraught. And they would say to me, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't want to get, I don't want to be coerced into doing something I don't want to do, but I feel like I have no way. And I'm like, breathe. It's not going to happen. Breathe. They can't make you do anything. And literally, like 3 days later, they would come to that realization themselves, and they would see in the real reality that it didn't come to fruition. But it would just, all it takes is that little people sitting on the fence, and they're trying to push you off the fence with fear, right? So that is just, I'm sorry if that took a bit. I just really wanted to explain that, because it's really, that is a huge thing right now, is that people just sort of knee-jerk react to fear, but nothing has actually changed in reality. They're just responding to their own fear. Yep. And that's how they're actually getting you.
I talk about that a lot, actually, Melissa, that they keep us in that state of fear. And when you're in that state of fear, you're not thinking consciously. You're in a reactive state.
Exactly.
And so and they do it by design. I always say everything happens by design. I know it does, because they've always got the next fear lined up. So, I mean, you jump from one fear to the next. It's always one fear to the next, and they're keeping people off balance, for one thing, by keep pushing this fear. And then you're in that fear state, so you're not consciously thinking, and then you're reacting, and nothing is going to get... They have you where they own you. If you're in that state, correct, the system owns you.
Which many people are, and they do this, they plan this like 20 years in advance, if not longer. So, as you said, it's not... what they do is they plan it in advance, and then they adjust it based on your reaction.
Yep.
So that's the part where you have the power, is your reaction.
Yep.
Right.
And that's the thing. I try to tell people that, and I like the way you said that. Just take a breath and kind of slow down and just think about it, because you're reacting to something that hasn't even happened yet. And I see you messing with stuff now.
Just turning on the light, because there's no light.
There you go. You're back. But no, but it's so true what you say, and I think people have to, and that's why I keep saying it's a morality problem. This isn't a voting problem. It's not.
No.
It's a morality and a consciousness problem, and I think that that it all boils back to for me, the shadow work that we were talking about. That people have to start doing the work on themselves, and then when you do that, then you're going to see how ridiculous the system really is. And then then you get angry. I know I did, because I got really angry, because then I see what they're doing to people. And it's so, they've got, like I said, they got us pegged, and I just, it's a dangerous position that we're in right now, and that's why I think it's great that you're doing the work, the great work, and I am, and a lot of other great people, and because we have to get that out there to people. They have to start. I always tell people, trust yourself. Like, you have to say, and as we were talking about earlier, I don't think people even know themselves anymore. They don't love themselves, and they're just in this state of fear constantly. And they want you there. They want you part of this system, and that's how they keep you in it. And people have to start. I like when I was hearing an interview that you were doing with Will and Mr. Rowland, and you were talking about community, and I think I'm trying to do that in my community now. I'm trying to. I'm getting to know I know a lot of my neighbors, but I'm trying to broaden that and meet more people in that, because I think especially over the last couple of years, we've lost is this ability to communicate in person. Yes. It's all technical now, right? We're it's great that we're doing what we're doing. I mean, you live in Austria and we're doing this. It's amazing. Yeah. Technology has a purpose, and I'll never say it doesn't. But they're definitely trying to put a wedge, I think, in so many different ways. This is another tangent we could go on, but I think they're putting a wedge between families, between husband and wife, their wife and husband, and children.
What is wife and husband, right? What does it mean to be a man or a woman anymore? You can't even talk about that, right? Because everything is just
Yeah,
fluid, right?
yeah, and that's crazy. And then but the community part, I think, and I've heard you talk about, is like let people know how important that is. We have to start going out
Massive.
and interacting with people. I know I do. I get right in their
Yep.
face and I talk to them. I'm like, we're
Yep.
doing this.
Because it's yeah, I'm glad you are doing that, and it is really important because and as you said, this is a whole topic, but to make it kind of like short, is that basically, again, this is also by design, and this whole metaverse thing is not out of nowhere. This was always planned.
Yep.
Basically, it will be that everything will become virtual, and not only will everything be virtual, is that you will have like a double, like you will have a sort of avatar version of you that lives in this virtual world, and you're a vegetable in real life. You just literally lay, you lay on your couch with the goggles on, and that's it. You never see anyone ever do anything. And long story short, that means that you can live forever in the virtual space, which means your soul is trapped there forever.
Right.
Now, if that's not at least a little bit of a sort of wake up call for some people, if they don't want their soul to be trapped, because that is one thing, like reincarnation is a real thing, we crossing over, our soul evolution is a real thing. And that is their ultimate goal. That's what that's from all of my research and stuff, what I'm coming to realize and teaching more of as well, is that they literally want to, because the negatively oriented beings, the people that control this world, they know karma is real, they know natural law is real, and they know that they cannot escape it. And the only way that they can delay their inevitable, judgment is by not dying in physical form. Okay. Yep. That's why you always hear, live forever, biohacking, live longer, whatever, right? Or live forever machine. That's what they want to do with the metaverse, is that they want to make it so that you can't necessarily physically die in this lifetime, because you're then trapped as a soul too, not just physically. So going to the point about community, it's critical for everything. I mean, where do we even start? Your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, the fact that you cultivating relationships, like you said, doing this, for example, for teaching and sharing knowledge. I think the internet has been the best for that. I love that I can reach so many people for educational stuff, and also to meet new people, beautiful people like yourself that are on doing this work too. At the same time, we have innate human needs, and those needs include physical touch, physical sensations, being connected with objective reality, like what is a real tree versus what is a picture of a tree. Okay. And I also want you to think about how disconnected it makes us from nature, not just each other, right? What good is a virtual sneaker? Now they're doing this, buy virtual real estate.
I don't get that either. Yeah, I don't get that.
Like, do that, right? How are you going to eat that? How are you going to protect yourself with that? How are you going to clothe yourself with that? Like, you still need to actually live. So it's completely degrading your actual existence. And to bring it back to the bigger picture, is that you incarnated here in a physical human body for a reason, and it was not to be trapped in a mental metaverse. I can assure you of that.
Yep.
It was to use your physical body. How do you do that? With physical movement, with connecting with Mother Earth and connecting with each other. The reason why they're making us disconnect with each other in community is because our power comes from our energy when we're together.
Exactly.
So when you're in a room, like you said, when you speak with someone in person, and that's what I still do, and even the workshops I do, when there's a group of people, something just shifts more. Like, energy just makes people think different, feel different, like instantaneously. Like, sometimes all you need to do is just, look at someone in the eyes for a few seconds, and they have like an experience.
Yep.
You can't do that online. You can't replace that online. It's also why people are so devoid now of any emotion. They feel numb, they feel depressed, so they try to stimulate their brain. Okay, if you want to just stimulate your brain, and you want to stimulate oxytocin, dopamine, and so on, to just stimulate chemicals, that's what you use, like social media clicking, buy things, take drugs, take alcohol, substances, whatever. Naturally, ways to stimulate that's actually long-term and not addictive is simply through being engaged with life.
Yep.
Like, do you hear the bird singing? Like, do you see the squirrel like running past you?
Yeah.
Have you shared a hug with someone that's really meaningful and literally just sat and spoke with them for half an hour without fucking looking at your phone or trying to post a picture? Like, I observe human behavior all the time, and I live in a place that's quite touristic. Mozart was born here, so it's quite touristic. And there was a huge group of tourists today. There's this beautiful cherry tree, and it's in bloom. They have these, like, it has like these
Oh, it
pink
sounds
petals.
right. That sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
and it was like, yeah, it's just beautiful cherry tree. And so I'm sitting in this park where this cherry tree is, like having my breakfast, enjoying the nature.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the 50 tourists that walk past just to run in front of that tree, take a picture of themselves posing some which way, and then going on with their day. And I think some of these people are like from the US, from Japan, from all over. I'm like, you flew all the way over here, right? Just think about it.
Yeah.
To pose in front of something, to take a picture, to run away so that you can get back into that virtual, be here, be present. Like, that's why people are so deprived and so loathing of themselves, because they're seeking this constant validation online. You're not going to, it's nothing. These likes, these friends you so-called have online, they know this brings them no intrinsic meaning. And that's because they don't know themselves, then, or they don't have any real community. That's why people are so easily offended in today. That's why we have this
it's crazy.
new generation that's so easily offended, because their whole identity is based on a comment someone put on that, like, hello, if you had any real life experience,
Yep.
someone's comment on fucking Facebook is not going to destroy your world. But that's the world we live in today, right? So people are extremely frail and vulnerable in their essence, because they don't know who they are and they don't have any real community and they don't experience real life. So yes, when you cultivate these real relationships, it's also what gives you real memories in life. Like, I have some of the most deep, profound memories. Like, if I told you them, you'd be like, that's not true. That's like from a movie or whatever. No one would know. But I know they've what made my life fulfilling. Not because I posted about them or shared like everything, but because I was so fully engaged in the moment with where I was, with the people and whatever, that it's just like where you experience the most magical connection with the divine that can't come through a screen.
No, it
Just,
can't.
it
No, you're
cannot.
100% right. It can't. And that I try to tell people that. I'm always telling people to go outside and just go out and sit outside for even a half an hour. I don't even care if it's 20 minutes. Go outside
Exactly.
and just connect with nature. And we both know, and I think a lot of people even listening know, that they are driving a wedge into that. They are trying to keep us
Yes.
away from connecting with nature. And I think a lot of what's happened over the last couple of years with this whole pandemic is that they're further driving that wedge. And you see it in so many ways, that they want you in the house, and then they want you wearing a mask, which, don't even get me started on the mask. I can't even imagine the damage we're going to see to children down the
It's
road.
big.
It's
Think
going to
about it. 2 years. So there's some
talk
children.
about that. That is a major. I don't think
So
people
there's.
realize how important this is, that this is
It's very
causing
important.
damage. It's
It's
not
very important.
natural.
So first of all, if you have children, or you influence children around you, if you do not want to raise psychopaths, I mean literally,
Mm-hmm.
they need to learn facial expressions, because that's
Exactly.
how we socially learn whether or not somebody is in pain, if they're happy, if they are in agreement. That is how we learn social skills. It's literally 80% is facial expressions. And that's also why, for example, I love, even when I do online stuff, I either send, you can ask anyone, I'll send voice messages or I'm doing video. I will never do, I keep anything that's texting or email to a minimum, because that is not communication at all.
I call it a dead language. That's what I call texting, because there's no emotion behind it.
There's not. And you can, again, like, you can verify this with anybody. And I've had this because I've been doing this for years. People always remember the conversations they had with me. They remember like moments we've had, because they were not a text.
Yep.
Because they're real things. You need to hear someone's tonality. You need to see their facial expressions. You need to see the entire body language. So communication is a whole workshop I teach, but to be really quick, there's 3 components to communication: verbal, visual, and content. Most people will say content is the most important thing, but
Nope.
it's the least important. Okay. Yep. It's actually, which one do you think is the biggest one?
I think the second one.
Visual, right?
Visual.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I think. That's
it
what I
is.
think.
You are correct. Visual is 55% of how we literally receive a message. Just think about this for a second when you're sending a text message. We understand and comprehend a message that someone's sending to us through communication. 55% of that message is comprehended through visual. 37% or something is vocal, and only 7% is content. That's it. So think, what is a text message? It's only content.
It's only content, yeah.
So you could be misunderstanding 93% of that intended message. That's my point. So in a world where everyone's like, oh, I have no real friends, or I can't find a proper meaningful relationship, or how can you when all you're ever doing is texting with people? That is not creating a real relationship with anyone.
Yep.
So back to your point about the children. There are kids at the moment that have experienced in the last 2 years, they have never seen a face that has not been completely half covered up. I want you to really think about that. If we're learning visually and vocally, 93% is visual and vocal, right? Think about how much is lost in their comprehension of social skills, which is, again, one of the most important skills of the world, because we do everything through interpersonal skills. Everything you do is with other people, right?
Yep.
And literally the other day, I saw a group of kids. It made me cry. We had our first outdoor live music event in 2 years.
Wow.
First one. It was on Friday.
That's crazy.
And I was getting like feeling this surreal. I was like, oh my God, I hear live music. And it's just, first of all, it's beautiful. And secondly, I had anger coming up. I was like, I can't believe what they've taken away from us for 2 years. We've not heard music out on the streets. And they know they do that on purpose too, because music raises consciousness, right? And it brings and uplifts people together. And there was this group of kids that walks past, and I literally witnessed a couple of the kids like experiencing for the first time live music. They'd never experienced it.
Wow.
Two, like, toddlers. And I was like, exactly. That is the, we're not even beginning to see the depths of trauma like that children have now gone through, not understanding what real life is. Like they think this is normal. On top of that, a lot of kids are afraid, to not wear the mask anymore. One, there was kids that were literally, because again, we're social creatures. So children that, for example, got an exemption from their parents that did the right thing, and they got some kind of exemption so their child didn't have to wear it. The child would literally say, but that's not fair because all the other kids are wearing it, and now I feel like weird. So now they feel peer pressured you see. So it's in all areas. And also there are not only children, I've seen this with adults that continue to wear it. We only had the mandate lifted, I'm not kidding you, again, after 2 years. It was literally only lifted about 3 days ago, the mask thing.
Wow, ours has been about a month ago, and they're still wearing masks. They're actually fighting.
Exactly,
They're fighting. There's a group in my town fighting to get the mandate brought back in to wear it. I'm just like, this is crazy.
Because first of all, they're so bought into the fear that they actually think that if you're afraid to breathe air, you are literally fighting the very meaning of existence. So you got your whole load of this is something we used to call hypochondriac. Have you ever heard of this term?
Yes.
We used to call a hypochondriac, which is somebody who always thought that they were going to get sick or ill, or they had some kind of diseases that they made up in their heads. That used to be called an illness. Now it's a normal person, constantly having disinfectant on their hands, wearing the mask, like scared to go anywhere near. That's not healthy. That's not a healthy, flourishing person. Again, even adults that don't want to take off the mask, and because they actually loathe themselves, again, they don't like the way they look, so they actually enjoy hiding their face behind a mask. So that brings us back to the shadow work aspect, which is that now it's again feeding on people's insecurities. They're getting what they want indirectly, which is that some people literally hate themselves so much that they're like, I'd rather hide half my face all day, actually, even though I can't breathe and I have to wear this thing all day, and it's actually constricting my breathing and it's not helping me, and it's very unhealthy. And it doesn't do anything, by the way. They'd rather do that because they don't want to show their actual face.
Right. So
the psychological impact has been huge. We're only just seeing the beginnings of it.
I agree.
When it comes to the kids, it's not a way to teach your children what real life is. It's not a way to teach them any form of real life skills. It is teaching them that life itself is dangerous. It's teaching them that life itself is something horrible, something to be afraid of. It causes all kinds of issues that out of nothing. So it's, and again, it's not actually helping your children. I want to be really clear here. It's harming them. It's not helping them.
Right.
The masks do nothing. We've known this for years. You can actually even hear it directly from neurosurgeons and heart surgeons that have said the very masks that they wear, the only reason that they wear them is just that in case there's not any, like spit or something that falls out their mouth on an open wound. That's it. Not because it can stop any bacteria or viruses coming through.
Right.
So, but the thing is, a lot of people won't even listen to evidence anymore because it's just so, once a belief is in there, it's a belief. A belief is so powerful, it creates your reality. That is totally true.
Yep. A belief is hard to break. That's a tough one to break on people.
It is, but a belief is only a thought you continue to think. That's all it is. So when you start to cultivate and think different thoughts and start to train your mind to think different thoughts, so every time the thought comes up, oh no, I'm scared if I don't wear the mask, or I'm scared of whatever. Catch it. That's the first, it's a practice. You have to catch it. You have to confront it. Is this true? No, it's not true. Change the thought. And every time you do that, you're creating literally new synapses in your brain, new neural connections that will create new beliefs and that will create new reality for you. This is all science. And that power is within you. It's not anybody else that's like saying to you that's going to change it for you. You have to change it yourself.
Right.
And it's something that it's in your daily habits. It's in your
that's how that's so powerful what you said, Melissa, because it's the same way when you said that you got to catch yourself. I'm constantly doing that because it's so ingrained. They're putting it so badly into our brains that you don't even realize you're doing it, but when you become aware of it, and I catch myself now because I'll want to do something. I'll be like, oh, I'm not good enough to do that. And it's so quick how that comes out. And then I have to catch myself. I'm like, wait, whoa, like, where did that come from? And so every time I catch myself, it's like you said, you're reprogramming. You're getting, you're putting the good things in and getting rid of that negative that's in there. It's incredible when you start being aware of it.
That's perfect. You're doing, that is the work. That is, and literally reprogram. Your brain is a supercomputer, and you can either let it be programmed by other people or you can program it yourself. But either way, it's going to be programmed because that's how it's designed.
Right.
So when you talk about like reprogramming, some people it sounds a bit, programming, and it's the nature of how your brain works. So when you understand your brain, then you can understand how to reprogram yourself. And you can't stop your thoughts. Let me be super clear. You have a new thought every 3 seconds. So if you're going to make it a full-time job to try and stop your thinking, well, that's not going to, so you can stop right there. It's not about stopping your thoughts, but it's about doing what you just said. That's it. That's all you're going to keep doing is what you said you're doing. It's just a constant practice. Catch it, change it, catch it, change it. I always used to have that as well with I do really big hikes here because there's lots of beautiful mountains, and growing up in London, there were no mountains. So I really enjoy the mountains here. And when I'm doing a really hard mountain, I used to always say, like, I don't know if you ever heard, like you say to yourself, like, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do this.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
And I would change it to, I am doing it. It's not even I can do it. Like, I am literally climbing the mountain. And I would start laughing because it's like, you're literally in the middle of doing it. So it's not even true to say, I can't do it or I can do it. It's I am doing it. So I'd literally just shift to I am doing this. I am doing this. And it's so bizarre because literally within a second, you get like this extra spurge of energy. Because again, your thoughts, they create energy patterns. And so, you're doing, that's the perfect work. The fact that you're aware of it, you see, a lot of people misunderstand, like, as if awareness is some small thing, and awareness is like 90% of the work.
That's huge.
Because that's your conscious. Your conscious is your prefrontal cortex, which is only 5%, where you spend 5% of your time during the day. 95% of your time approximately is spent in your subconscious, which is what? Autopilot, just doing the same things. So every time you've activated your prefrontal cortex, yes, it takes work, it takes conscious effort, it takes coming out of autopilot into consciousness, which again, there's many tools for example, counting. The moment you start counting, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you can do that too. You can shift because you have to focus on something logical.
Right.
So anything that may, like, that's why learning is so powerful, because every time you're learning, you're in a conscious state. You're in that prefrontal cortex. You're not in autopilot, right? So anytime you're doing something that is pure autopilot, you're not going to be catching it out because you're in it. You're just going through it. It's like a hypnosis state, you see.
Yep.
It's very powerful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, think about it. Like, have you ever had it happen that you smell, you recognize like a smell, like a perfume, or someone walks
Yep.
past you, and it just hits you, like, and a memory comes to you from like way back, like 20
Yep.
years ago or something.
Yep.
That is how powerful your subconscious is. You have no idea. Your subconscious holds so much more wisdom than you can imagine. So much. But becoming conscious of aspects of it and changing and reprogramming that subconscious is the work. That is you becoming aware and changing the program.
Right.
So,
And that's the work people don't want to do, is that they're happy. A lot of people, I think, are happy in this autopilot state, which is crazy to me that they are. But I get how they, like I always said, what was kind of funny, I was talking to somebody and I said, I don't understand how people cannot see what's going on and they're in this state of being in a trance. And then I was really happy because they corrected me, and they were like, they said, you know exactly how they are in this state, because at one time you were in that state before you became aware. They're like, how did you get in that state? And I was like, well, it's true. I was, I didn't think about things. I was just doing what I was told I should be doing, and spending my time watching movies and just doing pointless things. And then I slowly came out of that. So I like the way I was corrected by that. And I like to tell people that I do get now how that people are in this state, because the whole system is designed to keep you in that state. So you have to become aware that they're doing this to you, which I think a lot of people don't want. I talk to people and they're like, the government would never do this to their people. And I'm just like, whoa, I don't know, man. You got to open a history book or something, because the government's full of doing things to people. But they still have this, they're hanging on to this belief that the government's here to help them. And that's a tough one. So I guess the good way to end this, because I know I've been keeping you for a while. I do apologize. I could talk to you all day.
It's been fun. Yeah.
I know. I could talk to you all day, Melissa. It's amazing. Yeah. And, but how do we, I guess a great way to end it would be, is how can we get people on the path to seeing what's going on around them and waking up? I use that term very loosely. I don't really like waking up, that term.
Yeah, me neither.
I know.
Nowadays with the whole woke stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
They kind of stole it. But how do people start getting on that path to becoming aware and, being honest and seeing what's going on in the world, and then start making the change? I think that's a great way to end it, with some positivity.
I agree. But that's the thing, it is positive and it is optimistic in the sense that just your openness for further possibilities is a place to start. But we have to start small. It's definitely too overwhelming to just throw all this stuff at people. So what I always do is start small. This is the best way, is, what are you already curious about? Okay. What is naturally draws your curiosity? You must be curious about something. And starting small, like with a book. Like, what is one book somebody could read that kind of brings them into it, but not that? So, for example, you may not want to completely start with, government is slavery, but you want to start with a book like, the one I recommended to you, Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force, which explains to you simply levels of consciousness and how they affect our lives, meaning our emotional states. When you hear that actually sounds a bit more just kind of like, oh, okay, how can I better understand my own emotions and to live a healthy life? Incorporated in it, though, is a lot of expansive material. So it's stepping stones like that. Or, for example, a book like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is how I first got introduced into what the ego even is. That was one of my first.
That's a huge one, right?
Yeah. And that was from my early days, like you said, from when we were also still just in that autopilot. That book was, for me, the first just kind of nugget of, oh, there is this voice that's actually not mine in my head that I don't have to identify with. Like, that's actually starting small. That's not some woo-woo out there, like, human condition, slavery, aliens and all that. It's just talking about your own condition, like your emotions, your thoughts. For me, that's always a great small place to begin. Is simply Do you want your life to be better and more fulfilling? Do you want to experience more peace and joy in your life? Most people will say they want to experience more peace,
Yep.
especially the people that have anxiety, which is many. Most people that experience depression want to experience love or joy. So if you want to experience more peace and love, okay, how do you get to that state? So you feed them with the thing that will lead them to what it is they want. So I would say it's that. Start with small things like books that introduce you to better ways of living, but are also kind of leading you into those concepts step by step. Because that's how I started with Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now.
Yep.
And that opened a whole world for me. I never stopped learning after that.
Right, and I agree. I think small steps, because when we were talking off air, I told you, I sometimes when I talk to people, I go right at them. Like, I just want to download everything I know and give it to them in one soundbite kind of thing. And then I learned very quickly that we're not all on the same level. We're kind of, some people are
No,
up here and that, so you can't hit them.
but you see where you can do it. So for example, there was one person that I could help about not being coerced into doing something with their body.
Yeah,
So that was a victory. But for example, I tested them with, do they understand the whole thing about chemtrails? And they're not there. Right.
they're not.
So they're like,
Yeah,
they don't get it. They're like, what? They think it's still water vapor. So it's like, again, like you said, testing, okay, but not going overboard. And I know look, I get it. I know it's hard at this point. I get just as frustrated in the sense that, like, wow, how much is it going to take for people? But we also can't shoot ourselves in the foot by then just completely, we can't, the point is we can't give up, because there is no other way other than to do this. Is for those of us that have chose it, it's our mission, it's our purpose, it's honestly a driver. So
right.
the more I see like the evil in the world, the more it actually drives me to help people become more conscious of it. And so yeah, it's just using different small ways. And for those that you really feel like you're hitting a brick wall, perhaps it's not you. Perhaps they need to hear it from someone else. I can't tell you the amount of people where I told them something and 5 years later, they hear the same thing from someone else and they're like,
Yep.
I heard this thing that changed my life today. And I'm like, I told you this 5 years ago. So also the messenger is super important.
Yep.
So maybe you have some people in your life where you're like, okay, they won't hear this from me, but maybe there's a book or a different kind of lecture, YouTube video, something you could send them that's just like, you might like this version of it, maybe a documentary or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's always also the messenger is a huge one for people. For some reason it's who is delivering the message. Unfortunately, there's the whole thing about resonance. Who do people resonate with who? They're not really looking at the message. They also care about the messenger. So sometimes it's also just about who do you recommend to them,
Right, I agree, because I do know that I've recommended some people that I'm talking with a lot. I learn a lot from Mark Passio, as I've told you. I love his work, and that's where I really learned about a lot of this and really dove deep into it. But some people I send to Mark, they don't like his teaching style because he's very blunt, and I like that. I like that direct in your face and that kick in the ass that he gives people. So I like that, but I've sent people to him to watch some of his presentations, and they're just like, he's so angry and mean, and they see it totally different. So that's a great advice, that you don't have to go to one person. Seek out the information from a lot of different people, because not every one way doesn't work for everybody. One presenter doesn't work for everybody.
Correct. And that's also the beauty in it. That's why we're all different. And that's also why, to anyone listening too, you also can make a difference. Meaning that just because there's someone teaching or talking about something that you may want to talk about does not mean that the job's done. Everyone does things in their unique way, and you can deliver a message to a person that somebody else can't in a way that only you can do it. So never think just because there's someone that's already talking about similar topics that you can't also cover it.
Right.
Because you're always going to give it a different angle that somebody else really needed in a moment of need. And I'm telling you, to really make it like from a positive perspective, you'll get messages. I sometimes get messages from people like that were suicidal or really at the last ends of their life, and they'll send me some random message like they watched one video, and I say, they'll tell me like, I stopped myself from doing something really bad because of your words. And I'm like, holy crap, and to me it would have just been like
that's
a
so
normal
powerful,
video.
right?
So you really never forget who you really are, always impacting people that you don't even know,
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And I love the way you said that put your own word out there. Like, yeah, it's like, and I think a lot of people stop at that. I know I did for years. I'm as guilty as charged on that. I was taking in this information and I was processing it, but I wasn't putting anything out. I was like, and I just kept taking knowledge in, and I didn't. Then I realized that that's not taking it in and understanding it is not the end. Then you have to start putting it out there. So that's
That's
great
wisdom.
advice. That's wisdom. Yeah, the trivium, right? And then that's what I tell people. Like you've done. I know a lot of people that are taking this in and learning it, but they're not putting it out there. And so
Mm.
that's that. But we can talk about that if I want to definitely invite you back again, Melissa, to come back because like I
Yeah,
said, I
would
could
love
talk to
to.
you for hours about so many topics. I feel like I haven't touched on half the things that I want to, but well, actually, I
There's
did
a
touch.
lot
I
more to
touched.
go.
Yeah, I touched on a lot actually. I'm looking at my little
Did you?
bullet points, so it was amazing. So to just wrap it up, can you? I'll give you the floor. Let everybody know where they can find your work, your websites,
Oh,
anything that
yeah,
you
sure.
have.
Yeah, my website is the best place to go. There's several links there because I also have like a podcast and YouTube and courses and stuff like that. So website simplest is livintrainingeurope.com, living without the G, so LIVIN, trainingeurope.com. Um, and that's where you can find all the details. And I just want to tell you, I really enjoyed this and I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And I want to acknowledge you and say thank you to you as well for using your voice and
Oh,
putting your spark
well,
out there.
thank you so much. I had a great time, and as I said, you're always welcome back. Always welcome
I'll be
back
back.
to
I'll
come
be
and
back.
oh, I'll be back. That'll be great because yeah, I definitely want to continue this conversation. And just to let you know that I am going to be playing this interview. I have my radio show tomorrow night on Revolution Radio, and I will play this so people I can get the message out to that group. There's a kind
Awesome.
of a different group that are on the radio part. So I'm going to just play this interview that we did so I can get your word out to everybody there.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. And keep doing the great work, Melissa. And I'll definitely keep checking. I'm going to go check your website out. I'll make a link in the bottom here in the description so everybody can find it. And I'll keep in contact with you for sure. It was great having you here.
Thank you. You
All right.
too.
Have a great day. Take care, dear.
Take care.
All right. Well, there we go. That was an amazing interview. What an amazing woman and somebody I can definitely learn from and have learned from already. And I hope you guys really, really did enjoy that interview with Melissa. I'm going to leave a link in her like I said, in the description at the bottom, so you guys can go check her website out. Amazing stuff in there. She's got amazing courses and a lot of great stuff there. So please check it out, guys. And if you want to start on this journey to um, discovering yourself and falling in love with yourself and questioning everything that you believe and stuff and the shadow work as I call it and we were talking about, it's an amazing, and a lot of people don't like it at the beginning, but then you do grow to love it because you really do start to learn about a lot about yourself when you do this shadow work. And what a great topic. I could talk to Melissa for hours. I mean I really could, because when you talk to somebody that has a lot of knowledge and can teach it and stuff. Those are the people I love to chat with, because that's where true learning for me happens, is when I'm talking to people and we're interacting. And I just think that we covered on a lot of great topics, and I think that definitely I hope people are enjoying these interviews and getting something from them. And I'm not here to convince anybody how to live their life or anything, and I know my guests aren't either, but I just hope that watching these interviews that I'm doing and the things I talk about here and on my radio show is at least enough to get you curious and to start questioning things. I think is the greatest thing, and be opening to questioning things and being honest and looking around the world, around your life, and start asking the hard questions. And I just think that that's the amazing if that can happen. At least get people thinking and talking. And I think once that happens and more people start doing the great work, that we might be able to change this. I want to believe we can. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing this. So I just hope that you guys enjoyed the interview, and you guys definitely it sparks your curiosity to start looking into these topics. I think once you do, once I did, I couldn't look back, and I'm always now looking for information, and I'm open to new information. That's another big thing for me. I don't kind of, I have to look into it for myself. I don't just want to hear it and then just, oh, okay, that's how it is or whatever. I like to hear if it resonates with me, then I'll deeper into it and then see how it sits with me. Like the trivium process, I take in the knowledge and then I process it, see, and implement it in my life, see where if it's working, and then the wisdom part, putting it back out into the world. And I think we need more people doing that. I know I talk to a lot of people that know this stuff, but they just don't. They have a lot of excuses why they can't do it. And I was one of those people not long ago, because I would always say I didn't have the knowledge with computers. I didn't know how to do a podcast. I didn't know any of this. I didn't have the equipment. I had 100,000 excuses, believe me, not to do this. But then I realized that there was a point where I had enough, and that was a couple years ago. People know what happened a couple of years ago, so I mean, I don't need to bring it up. And that was what gave me the kick in the ass to start doing this. I just had enough, and I was like, I'm going to start talking about this and connecting with like-minded people who are doing the great work. So hope you guys enjoyed it. I thank you guys so much for being part of this, and I really enjoy talking to you guys in the chat. And I'm starting to do a live show, just to let everyone know that I will be doing a live show now every Saturday evening from, let me just get this right, from 9 p.m. till 10 p.m., but that's probably going to change, and we're going to go a little bit longer, and that'll be with me and my co-host, Cass. We did our first show. We just did our first show, which you can find here on the channel. And it's just going to be, me and Cass are going to be just talking about these topics. We're going to be covering natural law, morality, freedom, the occult, all of these things. We're just going to be having a discussion about it. And so I hope you guys join us. As I said, that'll be every Saturday. We're going to do it from 9 till supposedly 10 p.m., but I think it's going to go probably a little longer. A lot of people said the first show was a little quick, so we only went about an hour and 10 minutes. So it'll probably end up being an hour and a half, maybe 2-hour show. But that is, as I said, I keep forgetting to tell you guys, what time is it, Eastern Standard, whatever. So yeah, it'll be Saturday evenings, 9 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. So you'll have to might figure out if you're in a different time zone when that is. But we're going to be doing that every Saturday with my co-host Cass, who's amazing, has a lot of great points on things, and makes, great discussions I have with her, on the show and off the show too, when we're just chatting. So definitely, I hope you guys join us for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's my first venture into doing live stuff. I usually just do interviews like this and then post them, but a lot of people wanted me to start doing a little live show, so I'm dipping my toes into it. So just be patient, guys. I'm learning that as I go, but it's a lot of fun. I really do enjoy interacting with you in chat and hearing your guys' thoughts. So stop in. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And if you have a comment, whatever, by all means, we could discuss it during that show. And if you do want to reach me through email, not hard to get a hold of, it's binthinkingpodcast@gmail.com. So if there's a guest you would like me to get on with, if it has to do with these topics, or what, definitely send me an email and let me know who would you like me to get on, and I'll see if I can make that happen. And that would be amazing. I always enjoy meeting new people and having great guests on here. So thank you guys so much. And just to wrap up, as I always tell you guys, you can also find me at Revolution Radio. I'm on twice a week there. I'm on Saturday evenings from 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's in Studio B. That's my decompression hour, which, as we were talking about in this interview with Melissa, that's where I talk about music and movies. And it's just an hour just to talk about fun stuff and, not so serious. And that's why I call it the decompression hour. And then if you want my serious, my more serious show where I do my interviews and we talk about these topics that we talk about on here, you can find me on Monday nights. And that is from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. in Studio A. And that's also Eastern Standard Time. And you can find me at Revolution Radio. Just go to freedomslips.com and you'll find everything you need there. There's a lot of great hosts there. It's pretty much 24/7 that there's hosts going there and covering a lot of amazing topics. So definitely check it out. And especially if you're a fan of radio like I am. I grew up on radio, so I'm a big fan of that. So definitely check that out if that is something that you enjoy. Or a lot of people can't watch videos, right? Like they're busy, they're doing stuff, but you can always listen to a great radio broadcast or a podcast. So it's a great way if that's, your kind of thing where you're not into watching videos like this, but you'd rather listen. Definitely check out freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio. That is a lot of great stuff going on there. So thank you guys once again for being here. Remember, take care of each other, do stuff kind for each other, look out for each other, and start getting the truth out there and doing your part and doing the great work. Take care, guys. Peace. I'll see you next time.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries, cryptocurrency, and thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.